Meeting to order. Please rise. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do this backwards, but can we have a little moment of silence? Take a roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. Herner?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. All right, I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper and mailed to those requesting notice, and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy. Next, can we get an approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? We need a roll call for this. Roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And first, we're going to go for approval of the minutes for the March 28, 2016 executive session.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then next, the minutes for the April 11, 2016 regular session.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
We don't have any presentations for today, but we do have several scheduled public hearings. The first is R 2016-81, which is authorizing to read the 2016 budget by title only. What?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have to read it?
Title's clear.
Chris made a motion.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now that we've introduced it or authorized it by title only, the next scheduled public hearing is the public hearing on the 2016 municipal budget.
Motion to open. I'll second it.
All right, we will open the public hearing on the 2016 municipal budget. What?
Motion.
Oh, we need a vote to open the hearing? Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Go ahead.
Mayor, just by way of background, for those who were in attendance at our meeting 2 weeks ago, we had a full review and presentation of the budget for both the borough's operating current fund, our water sewer utility, as well as a presentation regarding our capital plan and program for the current year. Tonight is the scheduled public hearing, and with us this evening is John Barrett from PM Consultants, our financial consultant. At our last meeting, we had CFO Tom Seaman in attendance. At this time, just a quick summary that the budget as presented. First of all, I should say that I guess I'll take some of John's thunder. Part of the process requires the state to be submitted to the budget to be submitted to the State Division of Local Government Services for review and comment and authorization to proceed. I believe you all saw the email from the division last week indicating that they did not anticipate that the review would be complete in time for the public hearing. In any event, we do expect to amend the budget after the public hearing. We're going to hold a public hearing this evening on the budget as it was introduced and as it was published. There are some housekeeping adjustments to be made, as well as the fact that the amendment will include several grants which we have now been awarded that were not available to us at the time the budget was introduced back in March. Just a brief overview that the budget as presented provides for a tax rate increase of just under 2 cents. That is a projected tax rate based on our current assessed valuation. As I think everyone is aware, under the assessment demonstration program and the revised schedule, the tax appeals now have been concluded, and the final tax rate will be calculated on the basis of the revised assessments that result from those tax appeals. We anticipate that number, our total assessed valuation, to decrease by approximately $2 million. It will have a relatively minor impact on the actual calculated tax rate. In any event, that calculation is done by the Monmouth County Board of Taxation once the budget is adopted. This, from last year to this year, we saw in general approximately a 4.7 increase in total assessed valuation in town. And again, we had that, the details were presented at our last meeting. This budget provides for an increase in the amount to be raised from taxes, an amount of just under, or just over $430,000, which, as I said, will translate into approximately a 2-cent increase in the tax rate. The budget on the utility side anticipates additional revenues from operations and surplus on hand, but does not anticipate any increase in water, sewer, utility rates in the current year. With that, if Mr. Barrett has any further questions or comments, or the council's questions, before you go to the public for questions in the public hearing.
To dovetail to what Mr. Delaney said, the state was delayed in their review. We had some preliminary talk with the assistant director last Thursday and Friday, and we're anticipating between then and your next meeting that we'll have as simple as Mr. Delaney said, a small housekeeping amendment, and also including additional grants. So that's good news. In addition, we also have on tonight's agenda the second reading of hearing for the cap bank ordinance. If there's any questions at that point, that's a routine ordinance that happens every year. If there's any questions, I'll deal with those as they pop up. So if there's any questions from you, please feel free.
So the housekeeping resolution is the one that's in the 82 packet that has the grants in it?
That's correct.
Okay. And just on that, the increase in other expenses in appropriations?
Yes, in general, the budget, and we've distributed and made available to the public what we refer to as our 10-page budget summary. It includes all of the numbers that are included in the 60-page budget document that is submitted to the state. But in general, you will see that departmental appropriations are divided between salary and wages and other expenses. I think they're somewhat self-explanatory. Salaries and wages are just that, salaries and wages for existing and expected full-time and part-time employees. Other expenses includes all of the other charges and appropriations and spending that take place in the borough.
Okay, I just was asking specifically about the increase that was in that amendment.
Oh, the amendment, if you want to deal with the amendment at this time, let me walk you through that. That is resolution number 82.
I mean, you had mentioned it, so I just was...
There are a couple of minor issues. First of all, under the anticipated revenues, you'll see there are 3 items of revenue for grants. That's the drunk driving enforcement grant, the body-worn camera grant, and recycling tonnage grant. And you'll notice that at the lower portion of that resolution, there are offsetting appropriations. So the combination of the revenue and the appropriation have no impact on the amount to be raised from taxes or the tax rate. The housekeeping item, you'll see that there is a small reduction in what is noted as line 6, the total amount raised by taxes, a reduction of $2,000, and that's again the combination of the grants as well as the reduction in the below section under appropriations, the reserve for uncollected taxes, as part of the technical review that the state has performed. The other changes you'll see in the open space trust, which is the portion of the budget that is funded by the dedicated 1-cent tax for open space and recreation. That is an increase of $5,400, which reflects the actual amount of revenues that are anticipated based on the current tax assessments. The budget, as we introduced it, was based on the revenues received last year, based on last year's assessments.
Yep. Okay. And we won't be taking action on that tonight, just it's there as part of the presentation.
Not even can vote on the.
We'll be introducing the
Yeah.
amendment.
But we won't.
We won't take final action on this. There's a separate hearing required on that afternoon.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Should I give an overview of what we talked about 2 weeks ago, or should we just do a question and address it as it goes?
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth giving the overview if you don't mind.
Well, I see faces that weren't here last week,
Yeah.
and I figured we'll go over how we went into the budget process and what the thought was, and coming in open-minded now. I've been on a little over a year now, so I came in very open-minded, looking at how we're spending money and where things are going in the borough. One of the things that frightened me that we talked about last year is there's no plan for this borough at all. Up until recently, we had no asset inventory, we had no list of equipment, we had no depreciation for our equipment. We basically ran stuff into the ground, and when it broke all overnight, we went and bonded a whole bunch of money, borrowed it real quick, and overnight you all saw an increase in your taxes because we had to have equipment. Well, we've spent time, and we have a beautiful binder here that lists out every piece of equipment the borough owns, from police cars to snow blowers, and every piece of equipment we have that will break over time. And we've laid out a schedule of time over the next, how far did you go in that? I think you went 25, but we're looking at 5 right now. And we're budgeting accordingly, looking at how our schedule is, so every year we can replace a little bit of equipment to get us caught up, so that we can stop with these maintenance costs that come in overnight because we're out plowing a heavy snowstorm and 2 pieces of equipment went down. We're paying 3 times as much to get it fixed, or we're replacing it in emergency because we're buying the 8-ball. We're trying to control our own destiny. Our goal on the budget was, I didn't want to increase taxes. I don't want to be the one to sit up here and say we have to increase. But when you look at what's going on in communities around us that are trying so hard to stay at 0 without looking to the future, things go up. We have contractual obligations that increase. We have equipment that breaks that has to get replaced. We've done a real good job of running a tight ship on the operation side, but we've been paying for it out of other areas. We've been borrowing from the utility. The utility has, how many miles of pipe was that? You had
20.
a lot. So 20 miles of pipe in the ground that needs to be replaced. We have how many hundreds of hydrants that are older than, at least me and Tom combined, maybe not as old as you. 1930 decided. But these are things that we need to work, and if we don't start focusing on replacing them, we're going to end up in a spot where either we're forced to sell out our utility cheap to New Jersey American Water, who's going to come in and make us all pay for it that way because we didn't plan ahead and maintain it. We're going to have to sacrifice services because we can't keep them the level they're at. So ultimately, while I'm not happy that we have to increase, it's a necessity to stabilize. The way we seem to budget here is we don't spend any money, we don't spend any money, we don't spend any money, a lot of stuff breaks, we spend a lot of money, we don't spend, and we go up and down. Well, we've been in a valley for 5 years. While we've sat here with no increase, our contractual obligation to our police and public works have gone up. Equipment breaks, and the expenses are going up, just waiting for us to have to do what we did however many years ago, where we bond millions of dollars overnight that has to get paid for. And that bond, when I look at the money that's on there, an example, we rent a roll-off truck from Seagirt that we pay a certain amount for. I think we pay $9,500 a year, right? And how long have we had that agreement for? Call it 6 years. So let's round up, call it $60,000. But we bonded a whole bunch of money a long time ago that we've been paying interest on that's still sitting in the shoebox under the bed that can buy that truck that we've been paying for. That's something that when you see the expenses go up, we're using the money that we borrowed already and we're paying interest on to buy that truck. So now we don't have to spend that $10,000 a year, so now I can roll that over into replacing equipment that we need to keep the streets open when it snows, to keep the parks looking the way they are, to be able to do the trash pickup and the things that we look for, the recycling center running down here. This building has a roof that doesn't last forever. We're not budgeting for it, so we're just going to wait until we're sitting here on a rainy day and it's trickling down and say, let's go borrow money to replace the roof. So the goal is to try and lock in so that we can put money aside. And the challenge that we have, that Mr. Herner brought up last week or 2 weeks ago, is making sure it stays there. And part of the written plan was to make it harder. I can't encumber future councils to abide by what we put together here, but with what we've talked about and what's on video that will be on YouTube and what we have documented, we make it really hard for them to change it later to go out and do pet projects. People see surplus and think it's a bad word because we're putting money in there. That's fine when you don't need it for anything. When it's a waste of money that you brought in that you're just throwing in the pile because you might need it, we've earmarked everything. Can we cut back and probably do half of this? We probably could, but that's not going to get rid of our expenses. Our obligations still exist. We still have equipment that every day it's on the road is breaking down. It's running miles up. It's deteriorating. We have to budget to replace it. So our 5-year plan, if we drop this down and say we go 1 cent, we end up making our 5-year plan a 10-year plan. In the meantime, our public works supervisor has to keep pulling miracles out to do things with equipment that's either not safe, shouldn't be on the road anymore, or makes them take 3 times as long to get it done. So while we've saved money on equipment, we're paying for it on labor. We seem to shuffle the deck so much, but never really address the problem of how the deck is growing. Jay pointed out before how much we've gone up in our spending, and it's a scary number. We're going up 2 cents in our taxes for our expenses. Well, the last 4 or 5 years since Sandy, we've been counting on almost $100,000 that's been coming in from FEMA reimbursement. This year it's gone, doesn't exist. So a 1 cent increase translates to about $120,000, is that right? Right off the hop, there's almost a cent. The money has to come from somewhere. If I keep it zero, what do? Do I rate the utility so you don't see the tax increase and lie to you and play smoke and mirrors like a politician so that our kids can pay for it and you can pay for it in 5 years and I can get through an election of it? That's not the game I play. The reality is we have a set number of equipment here that needs to be paid for. I'm good with not doing this increase. We just need to figure out what services we're going to get rid of. If we want to maintain services, we still have a great tax rate. We have a wonderful town that's taken care of, and I don't want to end up seeing us play games with the budget, staying at zero, so in 3 or 4 years we end up with what's going on next door with the police department, what's going on in other communities with their water utility and issues that are out there, other communities with fire apparatus and other equipment that needs to be replaced. I want to stabilize so we can lock this in. The next 5 years, if we do any kind of increase, it'll be really tiny just to offset contractual obligations for salary. And we should be good, because if we get right in the middle of the hills and valleys, we should be able to lock this in and stabilize. And the goal is to stabilize, not keep it low. That's all I have. So I have a lot more to offer. I have giant binders of numbers and overwhelming stuff. So if you have questions, by all means, please come up. Because if there's a way, there's something I missed, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, if you were here at the last meeting, Jake Delaney, our borough administrator, went through all of this in even more detail. But yeah, I would have to agree with Chris on, I think we're putting a plan in place for the future as opposed to just trying to keep taxes low for the sake of saying that we didn't raise taxes. I think ultimately the money needs to be spent either today or tomorrow. I think this plan is the best way to balance both of those things out. Because, like I said, we could rate it from the water utility, but there's 19 miles of pipe that need to be replaced. And there's 10 years if we don't sort of use that
last year,
utility budget to fix the utility, then we're going to have to bond for it.
My water utility number. Over the next 5 years, we're projecting roughly $4.5 million of infrastructure repairs that have to be done. Tanks, pumps, pipe, hydrants. If we dip in this year to take $200,000 so you can think it came at zero, well, we'll just have to jack up your water rates in a couple of years to pay for it because we'll have to borrow money. I won't do that. I want to stabilize. I'd like to be able to make a budget for next year for my family and know where I spend money and not say, hey, look, we jumped again because we're not planning ahead, because we look to November for the election, because we look to putting some stuff on a paper that makes people feel good. We're not helping anybody by pretending to keep taxes at zero, so all of a sudden we can feel better about ourselves by painting this dire picture to everybody saying, well, now we absolutely have to, because if we don't do it, you lose this, this, and this. As finance chair, I'm not bringing that to the table, so I don't know if my counterparts agree with me. My heart's in on this, because I know we've put 4.5 months in on working with it, and John and Jay have been fantastic, and Tom did a great job starting it last year. I feel like we're here, so I'm open to any questions.
Well, this is why I made you furniture.
Thanks, Tom.
There's very few people in this room that drive 25-year-old automobiles, and most of our public works vehicles.
What was our average
are in
age?
that age.
Let me find that. Because we have that information now too. We didn't have that until about 2 months ago when we finished putting this all together. I'm going to find that number, because I was impressed by that. There you go. 1992, 1988, 1995, 1995, 1994, 1977, 1995, we finally hit 2000, 1999, 1992, 1987, 1989. Those are the years of the equipment, and I'm only a quarter of the way through the page. And
I bought most of that equipment when I was a councilman 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Listen, my father used to always say, in business, you can't bleed the business. You have to reinvest. This is a business. Instead of profit, we have tax savings to our townspeople, right? But you can't bleed it. You can't continually go and just let it tear down without it coming back and biting you at some point. And that's what we're trying to do now. Get a handle of what we think is going to need to be repaired, because there's things we can't even perceive right now, right? And not be in a position on a bigger scale. But that's exactly what happened like Flint, Michigan, right? right? Bottom line, don't invest, and look what happened. Things bad happen when you neglect the infrastructure. It's safe drinking water, it's sewage, it's all our basic services that we're used to. But they don't automatically happen. You have to reinvest.
Does anybody have any questions? I'm open to them, I'd love to hear them. I even like compliments.
Yeah, I mean, we should take a moment here and open it up to public comment. I'm fine with that. So, I mean, we have a public comment section after the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that's what this was, my apologies.
No, it's fine. If you want to talk about the budget, you've got particular questions or comments, please feel free to come forward, state your name, and address the chair.
I'll come forward. Cat Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I did read Councilman Campion's voluminous report there, and I think he did a great job. And I certainly know that Artie and his guys over at DPW did yeoman service with broken equipment for years, because anytime the Environmental Commission would try to borrow anything, it was usually held together with duct tape and spit. And, you know, you'd have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but that was all that was available. So, you know, I think it's a necessary thing, and I don't disagree. I'm wondering if at some point, and this is only because I'm on the cusp of this myself, is it possible for the council to consider like giving the senior citizens some kind of tax break? Because I know you had said that this is the type of thing that, you know, it's only $106 roughly for average evaluation.
I didn't use the word only, I'd rather it be none. I wish there was a
I
better
know.
system and we didn't have to
I
do
know.
property taxes.
Hey, but, you know, that's how you pay for government, is through taxes. And it's only $106, but then next year it'll be $106, and the year after that it'll be $106. And I've talked to younger people who say, this is great, my friends in Wall Township are getting hammered for $12,000, my taxes are cheap, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more. Then you talk to somebody who's older who says, I'm on a fixed income, you know, $106 this year, I can come up with it, but then I gotta scrape it up again next year. I talked to the woman up the street from me who's 9 years old, who said, you know, they bonded for trash trucks, I'm paying now for the bond for those trash trucks, now they're gonna be taking more money to pay for more trash trucks that I'm not gonna live to see. So I just wanted to kind of plant the seed up here that if you can come up with some way, because now I'm on half of a fixed income, and so I see, and you know, you're retired, a couple of people up here are seniors, it's hard to scrape up the money. And it's hard, you know, if you don't know where the money's going to come from. So you might want to give some consideration to that. And the other thing I wanted to ask was, as long as you're coming up with special fund ideas for big ticket items, what's going to happen when the chief of police retires? Because I keep reading these articles about chiefs, and I think Bayonne was one of them, that the chief of police got like $249,000 payout because of the bank's sick time, and you know, all of the time off, vacation time that he didn't take. And I have no idea what our chief has banked, but somebody might want to take a look
That's
at
a good
that
point.
if you're the finance guy, because if the chief decides, and I don't know how many years he has in, but he's been here a long time.
You
and I
can
would
retire
imagine
anytime
he's-
you want.
See how quick the best plan
Okay.
gets shattered?
So if tomorrow he came into the office and said, guess what, Mr. Mayor, I've decided to retire, do you know how much money you would need
No,
to pay him?
I will know tomorrow.
Okay, so you might want to look at that. Thank you.
That's why I like people coming up.
And if anybody has any revenue ideas, not just ways to not to charge you less, but for us to raise more money,
Mayor, if I may, just
that would be
to
excellent. Yeah, go
to
ahead.
answer those questions in reverse order. First of all, I would point out that we do make some modest attempt to pre-fund accumulated absences. Specifically in the budget, in the 10-page worksheet that's been distributed, I would point out, as soon as I on page 6, line 41, we put aside, last year, in the previous years, it was $5,000. In the current budget, we have upped that to $10,000 for accumulated leave compensation. Additionally, the information that has been pointed out regarding individual employee and collectively, we do track that, and that information is accounted for in our financial records. Regarding the first question, as far as the impact of any budget increase or tax increase would have on seniors, this is a great time to point out that there is one of the few programs that actually does work. It's commonly referred to as the Senior Freeze Program for property owners that are, I believe the cutoff is 65 years of age minimum. And there is an income limitation, although the income limitation is in excess of $80,000 a year. That provides those that meet the eligibility to have their taxes frozen at a base year. So for instance, if someone turns 65 this year, they file the form through the tax office, that becomes their base year. Any increases in future years are not paid by them, and I'll turn to John. Do they receive a credit directly from the state for that?
No, in fact, the calculation is what the base year is compared to the new year. So in this example, say taxes went up over $100 for a subject property. The taxpayer would make those payments to the municipality, they would file the forms with the state, and they would actually get a refund check. Compared to the homestead benefit, which is actually a credit applied to a specific quarter of your taxes. So this is a very popular plan. It's also state aid, and it's out there. A lot of people don't know about it. We have links off of our website, and a lot of folks get involved with that. And it said it's higher than senior. We also have senior deductions, $250 off on taxes. That is much stronger or lower income threshold. It's around $12,000, excluding Social Security. So a lot of folks aren't eligible for that, but when you look at the Senior Freeze Program, it's a program that works. So any future, it's my mother-in-law. I filed last year. I probably should have done it a few years ago. She's my mother-in-law. I don't want to announce that in public. I should have done it a few years ago. So she actually gets a few dollars back every year for her property.
Where do our residents get information on that?
On our borough website and also with our tax collector, by phone call to the tax collector. It's Property Tax Freeze, aka Senior Freeze Program.
That's on our website.
Yeah, and also it's on the state website, it's the Senior Freeze Program.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Placatella, 30 Spruce Lane, and I'm kind of confused about this APP assessment program, and I wonder if somebody would clarify it. As I understand it, we have a 5-year contract with this reality data system,
Yes.
and there's supposed to be 20% inspections per year.
Yes.
Are these physical inspections?
Yeah, they actually go out to the house, the 20%.
Because most of the people that I've encountered are complaining about their raising their taxes have never been physically inspected.
Do you know if that
I
area?
don't think they get in there.
Well, first, they do not get into every house. It is a 5-year cycle with 20% roughly a year. And I note from your address, I'm assuming that most of the people you talk to are neighbors in Fairway Mews.
That's correct.
Fairway Mews was not done in the first 3 years. We started at Block 1, Lot 1, and whatever number that is up to. It is my understanding that, let's see, we are about to go into, I've lost track. This is our 3rd year, and technically we have a 3-year contract with an option to extend that contract for an additional 2 years to complete the inspection. So as we sit here today, Fairway Mews is expected to be inspected this year, although we have not made that final determination because we've also had discussions about rebidding the inspection process, and I'm not sure we would want to split Fairway Mews from between 2 years.
Okay. But why, I've been there, I'm a kind of a new resident. Sandy took my home in Avon, I moved here in 2012. And in 3 years, I've had 3 increases without any physical inspection. And I was told that that is due because of the, what the houses are going for.
Well, we're a little off subject, but
He came up.
the
Now we're later.
What sort?
Uh,
Yeah.
Under this new program, the assessment demonstration program, the assessor on an annual basis reviews properties for assessment purposes. And I can tell you that having had the discussion with a number of your neighbors in Fairway Mews and having had the discussion with the tax assessor, the sales, which is property sales, are the underpinning issue as far as how values are determined. And the sales in Fairway Mews in general over the last 2 years have been very strong. And in fact, from the information that we've seen in the first 4 months now of this year, the sales have been even stronger. So yes, it is not uncommon and it is not unusual, particularly in Fairway Mews, to see those property assessments go up. But I will tell you that this past year, almost every residential property in town went up, some by larger amounts. And certainly Fairway Mews, because it is a desirable location, has seen probably a higher than average increase.
Yeah. I guess my only argument there is sometimes when you're comparing like properties, somebody may have put a lot more money into that property than somebody else. And then all of a sudden you get a raise based on your next door neighbor's value, and the value of your property is nowhere near that. And that is, I don't know whether that's part of this ADB program or what.
Well, it is, because again, the assessment demonstration program has a number of components, one of which is the physical inspections on a 5-year cycle, as well as the assessor reviewing assessments annually. So it is.
But I believe, to your question, his assessment went up based on the criteria under the old program, because he hasn't been re-inspected. So it would have just been the changes that were made during the blanket changes.
That's correct. The inspections are really, they are not tied directly to increases. So even though your property has not been inspected in year 1, 2, or 3, it is still reviewed for assessment changes. The inspections are really there to confirm that the information is correct as far as the size of the unit, the relative depreciable value, and that may also reflect or result in a change in the assessment. But for the most part, what the assessment increases that have been seen throughout the town are not directly related to the inspections.
And part of the program that I like when I talk about stabilization is once it's fully implemented, we're going through a tough time now while they're figuring out their bugs. And as we've said before, the real estate tax and this whole program is horrible. I hate the property tax. I hate the way it's laid out. I think it's unbearable. But
somebody's got to pay the bills.
That's it. But once the new program is in place, when they get through the cycles, it should stabilize well enough that when they bring in a change, it should, based on what we were told last time, and I don't think that's officially been implemented yet, but in their next phase, it will be averaged over a 5-year hit. So when your assessment goes up, you don't see that overnight. It's averaged to 5 years in a block the whole way along, which to me I thought was brilliant. Because right now, when they reassess you, overnight your car goes out of changes. So we had an at-length presentation from the county people here, and I know that we got a lot of information that we kind of took with a grain of salt because they say things, and we're stuck dealing with a system that we really have no control over. We work within the confines of the borders they set for us. So it's a frustrating spot.
I'm just curious why so many towns have adopted to get out of this program.
I think it's politics. Because when you look at it on the merits and you look at what they're fixing from the archaic system, I mean, for example, when we talk about budgeting and unforeseen things, under the old system, based on the way the timelines were done, we collect the money that comes in for the county and the school. And then we disperse that back to the county and school, and we keep our little piece of the pie. If you were to go into the old system and appeal, and you won your appeal, the way the budget and the timeline, everything laid out, we would still have to collect the money that went out and give it to the school, and we would have to eat your assessment that you won. ADP changes the timeline so that appeals are done before we finish the budget process. That's just one win. Because that money needs to come from somewhere. So am I stealing it from equipment? Am I stealing it from operations? Somebody who wins their appeal, which, good, if they're not fairly assessed, they absolutely should win. I'm not saying that's an issue. But at the same point now, everybody else needs to bear the burden at some point in the future. And when you keep taxes at zero while you're dealing with that system, when money keeps coming as people win their appeals, and we then need to shuffle the money to the school and the county out of everybody else's pocket, you just keep digging that trough deeper and deeper. So I think there's merit to the new system that fixes a really hard, archaic system.
Yeah, I think.
Approval of that, and I'm not against it, I just don't quite understand it. If everything.
I hate the system entirely.
Okay.
It's the best of the devil in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that with this new assessment program, the way that you do this the most fairly is that everybody's assessed at as close to 100% of their value as you possibly can. I think this system works better toward that goal than the old system, because the old system, you only did it like every 8 years, and you didn't know where people were on that scale, and this one kind of looks at it every year and says, oh, we're right on where we should be, or we aren't. And I think that for me, like just from a broad overview, that's the best thing about this new system.
And I think the old one, but true to your point on that, was it Jersey City that just got hit with the state as one of the towns that's going to be forced to do an assessment? How do you budget for that? Overnight, the state said you must assess your entire base. Borrow money. This helps us plan ahead by being in the system every year, 20% every year. It really is, and that's the goal with the budget, that kind of piggybacks on that. It's rough to go through it right now. I don't want to increase this year to get there, but we can't keep running where we've been without taking a huge hit. It kind of all goes together, where hopefully we can hit that line for the next 5, 6, hopefully we can stretch as long as we can, but part of this plan is next year we're going to have to look at it. We're going to have to go back to it and see, did we keep what was in there? Where are we with equipment? Did we get shocked during the year? Did a piece of equipment we thought that was okay suddenly fail catastrophically? And we can't plan for that, but we need to make sure that, like I said before, it's easier to shuffle the deck when you plan for things and say, well, the truck we didn't expect broke. We need to fix that. Well, maybe the one we were planning on we're not going to do this year, we'll push that down the road. But that's going to involve constantly being involved with this and not losing track of looking to the future. We can't keep looking to yesterday. As I said, that was quoted in the paper, we live paycheck to paycheck with no money in the bank. And when every time something breaks, we go and get a payday loan to fix it, and we're paying a lot more than we would have if we planned for it.
Man, I can appreciate that. I'm just hoping that we stabilize someday, that when these taxes go up, the assessments go up, that there's something done with the tax rate.
Well,
yeah,
It seems like the assessments are going up and the rate's going up.
Well, that's the frustrating part that I saw last year. We kept our taxes at nothing last year, but the school and the county went up. So those who saw an assessment that may have gone down stayed the same because taxes went up from the county and the school.
Right.
Those who went up, or those who stayed the same, saw the increase from the spending. Those who got assessed up and went up got double hit. Nobody ever saw a decrease.
Right.
And I see things that happen out there, I've heard the county's not raising taxes, the county's not increasing taxes. Well, when you read in there what they did and how they got their budget there and what's on there, it's a one-shot deal from selling the rest homes. But more importantly, what was the number that we went up on that? Everything went down countywide on spending, but I believe our contribution to county goes up almost $80,000.
78 was the number they.
So when you start looking at the numbers, it's great, but they're doing it countywide. So our little piece of that pie, our fair share, so to speak, went up 80,000 townwide. We don't see a decrease from the county.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have any comments or questions about the budget? You do.
You have questions on it.
If there are no further questions, the appropriate procedure would be to formally close the hearing on the budget as introduced, and then we'll move on to the amendment and the cap ordinance, and then deal with this again 2 weeks from now.
Excellent.
Motion to close the hearing.
Chris,
I'll second it.
There we go. And roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
All right, next we have the introduction of the authorizing the amendments to the 2016 municipal budget. Let me read the title for that. That's it. The resolution of the Borough Council authorizing amendments to the 2016 municipal budget prior to adoption, which is resolution number R 2016-82.
Motion to approve.
Chris made a motion.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And Mayor, just for the record, this amendment will be published, and we will have a mini hearing on the amendment 2 weeks from now.
Or we will vote to approve or not. All right. The next is ordinance number 2016-01, which is an ordinance to exceed the municipal appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank for 2016 pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor,
Okay, you want to read,
well, I'm not sure, is the motion just to,
Approve.
okay, so we have to have the hearing before the formal vote to approve.
Okay. this is,
Right, okay.
we're actually opening the hearing on this particular item. So if anybody wants to speak on this item, please come forward and say your name and address the, seeing no hands, can we get a motion to close the hearing on the, cap bank ordinance?
You got it. I
Okay.
get a motion, Robin seconded.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, which brings us to the public comment section, the first one. This is for agenda items only, so this is, if you want to speak about something other than the budget, that's still on the agenda, feel free to come forward and speak about it. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close the public comment
I'll make
section?
that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We don't have any discussion items, which brings us to our mayor and council reports. We will start at that end of the dais. Mr. Herner, do you have any?
I do not.
Okay.
I did mine already.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
Oh, we're going to start reviewing the procedures at the recycle center. We're getting a lot of material brought in that it doesn't belong. So we'll be checking that out. And the other thing is, we just put 2 new signs up, one at Ocean Road Park and the other at Eller Park, stating that Ocean Park.
And it also has an enter and an exit sign on it.
No, this is right out on
Yeah,
the side, designated.
it's good.
I have nothing in terms of utility, but I would like to say, I'd like to thank you and Gary and Pat for our Saturday participation on Earth Day. And you 2 guys were incredible, all the junk you dragged out of there.
Gary went down half the spring lake. Yeah. Carry it out of there.
It was the other guy who pulled it all out.
All right, that brings us to our reports, notices, and correspondences. Within those, we have New Jersey Transit Public Meeting Notice, which is on May 25th, 2016. We have a Spring Lake Heights Board of Adjustment hearing for 816 Ocean Road. There's a letter and a resolution dated April 15th from the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders regarding grandfathering provisions to the National Flood Insurance laws for homeowners that build to elevations acceptable at construction. There's a letter dated April 20th, 2016 from M. Clark, the County Tax Administrator, regarding the Assessment Demonstration Program and opting out of that with a sample resolution and clarification of the draft. And that was dated April 19th. There's a copy of Belmar resolution opposing the New Jersey natural gas rate increase. There's a copy of Manasquan resolution opposing that same rate increase. And then there's a letter dated April 18th, 2016, and a resolution from the South Monmouth Regional Sewage Authority adopting their rules and regulations. That brings us to our ordinance introductions.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
You can.
Maybe I missed something. Back to ordinance 2016-01, where I had Mr. Campion and Mr. American open the public hearing, and then we closed that. Were we going to do a vote on that ordinance tonight?
Yes, okay.
I think there was a vote on.
Well, I.
No, they didn't vote on the order. I wasn't clear though that we weren't holding that.
Well, let's be clear about it and let's vote
Yes, you want
on the ordinance.
Initially, Mr. Campion and Mr. American
Okay.
had made a motion to.
So that was, we opened and closed the hearing, but we didn't actually vote on the ordinance. That's how, what you have in your record. So let's make sure that we get a vote on that.
Okay.
I'll make a
So-
motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Can I get a roll call, please?
Thank you. Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
We have one ordinance introduction beyond that, which is ordinance number 2016-02, an ordinance amending section 9.2.1 entitled Fees of Chapter 9, Recreational Facilities of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights, New Jersey. And then that ordinance just changes some of the fees for summer camp, basically, and late registration fees. Right?
You want to just,
Yes, essentially, in consultation with the Recreation Committee and the Recreation Director, this outlines all of our recreation fees, the ones that are changing or are import this year. I guess I would say that the summer camp remains unchanged.
Okay.
For the resident fee, the non-resident fee will be increasing, and that's covered under Section B, which provides for up to a 50% additional amount for non-residence fees. We've also increased the single-week program. You may recall that the summer camp program, I believe last year instituted the extended week. That is increasing from what had been $40 to $50 for that extra week service. And then the youth sport leagues and the sport clinics are an increase of $5 over what was previously allowed. Just by way of background, this ordinance provides the maximum fees for these various programs. Upon the adoption of this ordinance, there'll be a resolution for the specific programs for the rest of the year.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I'll second his.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, that brings us to our resolutions.
We need to indicate when the ordinance is going to be hearing.
We'll have a public hearing at our next meeting, May 9th.
The first resolution is Resolution R 2016-83, requesting approval to include developer escrow fees in municipal budget as a dedication rider. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is Resolution R 2016-84, a resolution of the Borough Council approving use of the community center.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is Resolution number R 2016-85, a resolution authorizing SMSA Limited Partnership and Verizon Wireless to jointly use poles in the right-of-way.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And the final resolution is Resolution number R 2016-86, a resolution of the Borough Council approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth in the April 21st, 2016 bill list.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That finishes up our resolutions. The final section we have is a public comment section on anything that you want to talk about. Doesn't have to be about the budget, the agenda, whatever you feel like talking about. If you have something to say, please come forward and address the chair.
Shelley, 1214 Crosby Road. I apologize if you have addressed this in prior meetings, but we received a letter last year regarding sewer improvements and paving, and we haven't had any updates on that. I was just wondering.
Let's ask for a status of that.
Go ahead. As Joe just walks out.
Crosby is on the docket to be repaired or actually repaid. I will check with Mr. Bay. I know that the water and sewer work is scheduled, and then once that's completed, the repaving reconstruction will take place.
Any idea when it's scheduled?
Realistically, Joe, Crosby, Jeanette, and Norman, is that
Probably July, August.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Rich Gallagher, 968 Trust. I know it's something that was discussed a year or more ago, the condition of the curbs, especially 9th, 10th Avenue, Lake Park, Prospect, in that area. There's huge chunks of curb just sitting in the roadway for a year or more. Want to know what the status of the recurbing is?
believe it's responsibility of the homeowner, right? To redo their own curbs unless you have a program going through?
Generally, we have to take a look at them individually, but we do have funds in the budget for road repairs, and some of those do include some curbs in areas where, particularly in those areas where they've been damaged due to snow plowing. There are other areas that don't have curbs, which would be addressed as a separate project.
This whole area is deteriorating. The whole development, when it went in on 10th Avenue, it seems that whole area, all those curbs have been breaking down for a number of years there.
Well, how come some are, some aren't?
Well, depends on the condition, right? But it is, generally speaking, I know of curbs that are older than them that are still pretty good, but they seem to be breaking up more than someone else. So I wouldn't necessarily contribute all the snow plows or whatever. I think they're just deteriorating and need to be replaced.
Well,
But when they were put in, if you remember, they were assessed to the homeowner. The town didn't put in all those curbs. They didn't put in
I don't know, I'm not as old as.
Well, no one's as old as I am. But they paid for themselves through an assessment. That's something that they used to do back in the day.
Well,
Yeah, generally, we've been working on the concept that curbs are part of the roadway as part of the drainage. So in order to preserve the road, we've been doing repairs as necessary. I'll take a look at, if you provide me with a specific location, I'll just speak with the engineer, we can tell you where that is, if on the scheduled plan, if at all.
from Prospect, Lake and Park, between 9th and 10th, that's all. area. I mean, there's big chunks of curbing just sitting there for months on end. Yeah, it's a hazard.
We'll take a look at that. I will point out specifically that the current budget does include funds for a road program.
Thanks, Rich.
Eileen Attenberger, 1213 Farm Road. Making a rec department announcement that we're having our townwide yard sale on May 21st. So everybody know.
And that you have to sign up at Borough Hall, right?
Right,
And then
yeah.
they list you as one of the yards that's there. People can come to Borough Hall, get the whole list, and pop around the whole town. A lot of people come that day. I mean, it's actually, you would, I don't know, people drive it all over.
Yeah.
Jack Kirkman, 564 Atlantic Avenue. On behalf of the Environmental Commission, I want to thank the people who participated in the Earth Day cleanup, to echo Councilman American. And for those who came late, because we did get rained out about 11 o'clock, and I had some people who showed up at my house and said, "Hey, where's the barbecue?" Because you're cooking dogs. So for the people out in the audience who don't know this, I do have photos of your mayor in shirt sleeves, soaking wet, pitching lumber, which he and the borough attorney, who was also a resident, gathered it was pieces of boardwalk left over from Hurricane Sandy that had washed up into Black Creek. And these guys went in there in the rain and dragged that stuff out of there. And Councilman American went in and opened up a trail that had been overgrown for years, so these guys could pull everything out. So these guys don't mind getting their hands dirty.
The train cells are really fun.
And I also want to thank Mr. May and the Public Works Department, because we had at our disposal one of his gentlemen, Steve Guglio is his name, and Steve is also a resident. And the residents, you can really tell the difference when you get a resident in there, because he did whatever he could to help us out. He brought over 2 of those Cushman's mega haulers, I don't know what you call them anymore, that we filled. You guys had 2 or 3 trips with boardwalk boards, we had trips with brush, and then he was back there this morning at 7:30 this morning with the front end loader, taking out the tons of brush and lumber and debris that the other people cleaned out of the woodlands there. So that was a huge help. Everybody deserves a big round for that. There's a lot of sweat equity that went
I
into
just wanted a
that.
hamburger.
Yeah. Lisa and Sandy have the burgers. They took them home, so you'll have to see them. But thank you all. That was and that really shows you what teamwork does, because everybody went in there and pitched in. We had one group that went to remove the boardwalk boards. We had another group that's trying to reclaim some woodlands there that's been, you know, again, sandy cleanups. There's branches and trees down in there, and people went in there and pulled everything out. We had a huge pile of debris from that, so.
Just explain to some people who might not know exactly where this park is.
Oh, Black Creek Park, if you haven't been there, you should go. It's behind the recycling center. The way you get to it is when you come down 6th Avenue, if you were going to recycling, you'd turn up Atlantic to go down the end of the street. Don't turn, just keep going another block to the end of 6th Avenue. You can't see it. Yeah, stop driving before you go into Black Creek. There's a little parking area. There's an absolutely beautiful park back there that most people don't even know about. We have great wildlife. The herons are back there. You can watch the ospreys fishing for carp in the pond. Sometimes there's deer back there. There's foxes. We have hawks. We have owls. These really nice little spots. So treat yourself. Get down there. A snake, we found a snake. What else? We had the hawk was there in the morning. So yeah, so it's a really nice spot. Go down there, take a look, because these guys did a great job cleaning it up. So.
What? Yeah. Did you have something? Oh wait, let's see. Does anybody else have anything? Okay.
Well, no, I just wanted, in addition to Crosby Road, the status of that, I wanted well for the status of what that is. And my real point is, we need to get a report or put on the agenda, open items that come to us. Because with everything coming up, you tend to forget about those things. And before you know it, you're sitting there going, what happened to that project that was a year and a half ago, a year ago? What's the status? And it gets lost. And a lot of council, we lose track of it. We need to know what's open, what's going on. If it sits on the agenda for a year, what's wrong?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Something's wrong. So I don't know what mechanism I want to use. But we got to know.
Yeah, we generally have a review of outstanding projects.
You guys do.
We do, and if you like, I'll provide you with an update on those.
Either on a monthly basis or on the agenda or whatever it comes to our hits us in the head and says, why is this still not done? What can I do to help you?
Well, especially for me, because I have a habit of thinking when people say stuff's going to get done, it's silly me that it actually got done, and then I find out 6 months later, oh no, we forgot about that, it got backburnered because something else came up.
And that happens in government because things come up all the time, and it helps them and it helps us. I agree with you 100%.
There's a lot of projects, the money is there.
It's been there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's not good reasons, and I'm not saying it's advancing, but I don't know what those reasons are, and I know that we want to get them done because we have new projects coming on board. Like clear that, and then bring on new projects.
I think that's true to what we've talked all night about, tax and everything else, planning ahead and controlling our destiny. And again, that's something else that we're reactionary on of who's screaming really loud today, oh yeah, let's go back to that project we should have done a year ago.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep. Good idea.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll wait. There's one more. We haven't closed it yet, so you're more than welcome to.
It's Jerry, 561 West Street. I live between two fire departments. I kind of wonder about it often. So my question is do you communicate with any of the other communities in some cooperative way to provide services that may limit expenses to some degree?
We actually have quite a few shared services agreements in place, and on a regular basis, we review the areas where we can best utilize those shared services, both from a public works perspective, from a fire perspective, from, we have a shared services with our dispatch, for instance, with our police. We try to do it as best we can, yeah.
And our plan going forward for fire equipment is to start replacing multiple pieces of equipment with one and combining vehicles to reduce the ultimate number of equipment that we have. So that is part of our plan where the next piece of equipment I believe they're going to replace a rescue and an engine with one piece of equipment, so two go to one. And then we're going to follow that strategy going forward to get them to a manageable size.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay.
Does anybody have anything else? All right, can I get a motion to close the public comment session?
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Opposed?
You have one more thing before adjournment?
If I may, I know that there's probably not a lot of people in the room that this affects, but with Little League going on and events going on at the parks, please, please, please park in marked stalls. Don't park on the grass, don't park on the side of the entryway. I live around the corner from it, and I often walk by, and I see situations that from an emergency management end, if we had to get an ambulance in there to help a kid, it's not happening, because people didn't want to park on the street and walk in. I saw a vehicle on Alair Road parked right up against the entry sign on the right side, blocking half the driveway. True, a small car could easily get through there. If something happens in an emergency and equipment needs to get in there, it's not happening. Use the marked spots, please. That doesn't include the grass on the back where you happen to go in and things like that. The marked spots are the street where you can park on the other side, or you can use the park on Fletcher to park. But please don't park up on the grass in the front of the park.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
What?